Fightful Kate shows in Little Big League, released in 1994. I will go on the record by saying I watched it today for the first time.
No. What?
No way.
It's the first time I've seen it, yes.
You learned about young Billy Haywood just today.
It's always been in my
managing
queue,
career.
and it kind of just went by the wayside, I guess. We're going to be doing Guess That Top 10.
Have you not seen this movie?
I had no idea. And I played baseball. Like, I don't know what the hell.
No, you allegedly played baseball,
No,
but now
I'm
calling dog shit on that, too, because every kid that played baseball watched this movie.
I graduated high school in 1994. That's why. It's, like, I was already, like, working on having children and stuff. I forgot about this movie.
So many, though, from that time. Like, I feel like a lot of people didn't because of The Rookie and Angels in the Outfield and The Sandlot and Wild Thing, and, like, Major League. Like, there's so many baseball movies from that time.
Yes.
And there's even a lot, like, that B tier is also chock full. So it's like this slips off people's radar. I don't know why I had such an attachment to this particular one growing up, but I love this movie so much.
Fantastic.
Absolutely love it. In 94, I think I was about to start single A ball, RUKUS. See, I actually played baseball. You thought you played baseball.
Single A ball doing what?
What do you mean?
Single A ball where? You are damn lie. Don't even try to.
It was in Georgia. It was in Georgia.
Georgia.
It was a small town. You wouldn't even know it if I told you.
You were born in a small town.
My second job was working for a AA baseball team. Like, I was obsessed with baseball from, like, I grew up in New York, so I was right on board with those Yankee years by the time I was like 8. I was 1995 when I was 8 years old. So by the time I was 9, they were in that like 96, 98, 99, 2000s championship run. And so I was just like this wide-eyed, excited kid for the better part of like my preteen years, just on this absolute like high of being able to buy into all your heroes and having them win a lot. Like, I was a really, really fortunate fan at that time. But I grew up next to the Mets AA affiliate. So I was just always going to minor league games. It was like 8 or 9 minutes from my house. And I fell so in love with baseball so young that it just became such a part of my life. And yeah, this movie was like always on my VCR, if you remember what those were.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're going to ask. Like, what made you pick this movie? Like, why is it near and dear to you? And you kind of answered that, but feel free. Like,
and yeah, like This and That Thing You Do were always like the things that I would grab for that were in, like, I had my shelf with all my VHS tapes on them. There was like the whole Disney category of like Little Mermaid and Lion King and all of those movies. And then That Thing You Do, I guess, because I've always loved music too. And there's like, watching that as an adult, I have such an appreciation for the innocence of it. But Little Big League was it was like Little Big League and Field of Dreams were my baseball go-tos. But like, for a nostalgia pull, this one just has like every element, I feel like, of what felt like 90s baseball movies, with like the montages and the mom third baseman love arc and a 9-year-old managing the team or whatever, or like an 11-year-old or whatever he was. So this just felt like Run Around Sue's playing. I'm like, what baseball movie doesn't have Run Around Sue in the background at some point of a montage, right? Like, it just has like all those nostalgia feels for me that like take me back to a specific moment in time rather than just like watching a movie, I guess.
Now, Kate, as a baseball movie, you say you're a baseball junkie, right? Do you remember as a kid, like getting the paper and going to look at the stats from other games? Like before we have a sports center and all this other stuff, right? You'd go in and look and like, oh my Lord, Reynolds hit a double to win the game yesterday. Did you do that?
All the time, and especially because I was young enough and East Coast games ran from like 7 to 10. So I was always missing the last innings because I had to go to bed as a kid because my parents were responsible. So I would check the Sports Center the next morning of our local paper, which was like 8 sheets in its entirety, right? Like, it was a small town local paper. Would always check the stats. And the other thing that would happen is, especially during the playoffs, I wouldn't do so much as in the regular season, but I would, as soon as my parents went downstairs and I went to bed, I would put my radio to, I still remember it, like 14:30 a.m. So I would listen to the game as I would fall asleep, but that was on one of those clock radios that's supposed to wake you up in the morning. So my parents would be like, why the hell isn't she getting out of bed before school? And it was because I fell asleep with the radio slid all the way to the left on the AM dial so I could listen to Michael Sterling John Sterling and Michael Kay rather. And especially if they were on the West Coast, because those games started at 10. So I was like, if I could just make it to 10, I could hear the start of the game. So I was always like trying to adjust, but my parents were like, she always sleeps through her alarm during the playoffs. It's the weirdest thing.
We were talking about Little Big League here. That was a 1994 story of Billy Haywood, whose grandfather passes away and he inherits the Twins. Has a ton of baseball knowledge, not a great player. Most kids, at that age aren't, especially like Rukus. And seemingly doesn't like the way the team's being ran, and he fires the manager, who's actually the guy that played the manager. Maybe you guys remember him from Rukus. Do you remember what movie? You probably Dennis Farina. You remember what movie probably you remember him the most from?
He's very familiar to me, and I can't place him.
He was in a mob movie, Goodfellas. He was the one that they stabbed up in the trunk.
Yeah,
right?
but I've seen him somewhere else too.
He's been in a bunch of stuff.
NYPD Blue, maybe, I think too. He was on TV for a while.
He was a cop in real life in Chicago. Big Chicago Cubs fan. Yep. So he fires Dennis Farina and takes over the team, and he just goes through his trials and tribulations what a 12-year-old manager of a team would do. Some fun facts about this movie, Kate. Maybe you know or don't know, but in this movie they had a one playoff game. It was the Twins versus Mariners, and it lasted for 12 innings. But in 2009, it was their last season of Metrodome. The Twins actually played a one playoff game, which lasted 12 innings. And interestingly enough, it was the same year that the Twins owner, Carl Palade, died and left the team to family members. So it kind of foretold the future of what's going to happen.
Wow.
One more fun fact. This is a fun one for me. The kids get an argument about whether or not the Batmobile could go through a drive-through. Again, preluding to the future, because next year, the Batman Forever movie comes out, and it's heavily sponsored by McDonald's, which drives the Batmobile through the drive-through. So I thought that was kind of neat that they actually had that discussion. Kate, I'm going to ask you a couple questions real quick, and Rukus, I'd like for your thoughts on that.
Okay.
So when we talk about Little Big League, I'm going to ask you Little Big League and you tell me which one. All right, ready?
Ooh.
Little Big League or Angels in the Outfield?
I go Little Big League over Angels in the Outfield.
Right. Little Big League or Major League?
Oh, that's tough, but realistically, Major League.
Yeah.
All right. Rukus, Little Big League or Major League?
Major League. That was my baseball movie. Major League was my baseball movie.
All right, two more.
Sandlot number 2.
Well, we're about to get there. Slow your roll. Little Big League or Rookie of the Year?
Little Big League.
Little Big League. And I actually thought, for whatever reason, I thought that Rookie of the Year was the one that we were going to look at. That's the one where the kid's like, pitcher's got a big butt, right?
Rowan Butner. Rowan Gardner. All right. And last but not least, Little Big League, Kate, or The Sandlot?
Sandlot. For sure. I think Major League and The Sandlot are like legitimate A-tier movies, and Little Big League is the best of those B-tier movies, I think.
Yeah.
That's how I would distinguish
That's
them.
a fair
Right in
assessment.
Right in that house with Angels in the Outfield. And there was another one, too, that I can't recall.